everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we've got a new piece of equipment that we picked up at the auction. I'll show it to you. Try to explain why I bought it. Well, at least I'll try and convince myself why I bought it. And we'll see if we can get it going and put it through its paces. This here is a Sioux model 645 valve grinding machine. I got it at the auction for 115 bucks. We'll find out if it was 115 bucks well spent when we try to use it. Anyway, this is a really nice machine. Previously, we had this guy, which is my old Black & Decker 282 550 Super Service. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I've done quite a few valve jobs with this. The only improvement that this really needs is some kind of an actual proper coolant pump. On this machine, the electric motor is down underneath here, and the coolant pump, the housing, if you could imagine, the end of the shaft on the armature has got some little passages through it, and there's a seal. So there's a sealed chamber with the shaft with these passages drilled in it, and it basically is supposed to create a little bit of a vacuum and pull the coolant out of the reservoir and push it up here to the selector valve so it comes out at either end. Well, it's really hard to keep it primed. If you're not using this thing constantly, it's a pain in the neck to get the pump going. Although I have come up with an idea in my brain how I can fix that, but that's not what this video is about. And then we also have this little teeny weeny guy that we bought at the auction a couple of weeks ago. We fixed that up in a previous video. It's just a fun little toy, this one. Anyway, what I really like about this Sioux machine, you'll see here down in there, there's your coolant pump. It's belt driven and it's constantly primed because it runs submersed. It runs submersed in the coolant, right? We do have a little bit of work to do. There's the hose for the coolant there, and it's as hard as a rock. So we got a little work to do on that. Just like my Black & Decker machine, it's got the stem grinding attachment here on the end. I'm not sure what this thing is for. Well, I know for sure right in here, you could screw your stone dresser. There's a 3/8 fine thread in there, and you put a 3/8 fine stone dresser in there, and you use that to dress your stone, right? I believe. Don't quote me. And there may also be something. See here, there's access to the side of the grinding wheel. There may be. I know for this machine there is a chamfer attachment. So that would be for putting a chamfer on the end of the valve stem after you dress it. Although I don't know which end of this machine that gets done on. At this end here, it's a little bit different than the Black & Decker. Where the Black & Decker has a collet chuck, this has got, like, you see these 3 balls here? That's how this one works. And some of them had a quick chuck. It was like this, but it had a lever on the side. So you just stick the valve in and go boink, and you're all set. Like the Black & Decker, it's got the depth stop. It's a similar machine. It's just much more heavy duty. This is the kind of thing that you would have found in a service station where they maybe do a valve job every week or every other week. This thing would have been in a machine shop where it was made to run constantly, where they would just be reconditioning cylinder heads all day long. Anyway, we're going to go over it. There's a few points on here where we can put some oil in, and we're going to run everything through its full travel, make sure everything is nice and free, and then we'll get this coolant hose fixed up and see what happens. It's a really thought out machine. You'll see here, you take off these 2 thumb nuts. And this whole cover comes off, and you'll see the motor and everything inside there. And you'll see it's pretty neat. Inside the cowl here, there's a plug So there's the other side of it. The motor is plugged in, so you don't have to fight with wires and stuff to take the cowl off. So you can see the belts. This belt drives the grinder shaft, right? This belt goes down, and there's a shaft that runs underneath it to the valve head, to turn the valve head, and you'll see it's got a unique kind of a deep V pulley in there, so that when you swivel the valve head around, the belt can still drive it. Pretty interesting. And then there's the belt that goes down to the pump. Now, an interesting little thing here, I looked it up, and this is supposed to be a 25-inch belt. This is a 24.5-inch belt, and it's still loose. And I've got this adjusted all the way. So anyway, it is what it is. I may buy a 24-inch belt and see if that helps with our little problem. So what we're going to do now is try to figure out what we're going to do with this hose here. So there's our coolant hose fixed. I just used a piece of 1/2-inch heater hose. Good enough. I'm not sure what the routing of it is, but I routed it down through there. And over here, this is interesting. It's just a big chunk of cast iron. So it's nice and heavy. It just sits on there. That way, anytime you want, if you want to drain the coolant tank, you don't have to undo the hose or nothing. You just lift this off, pull the tank out. Pretty neat. So hopefully that'll work okay. Now I'm going to get this cleaned up, this shaft, and make sure all this stuff, it's a little bit sticky. So we'll get this stuff all polished up and make sure it moves freely. Well, I've hit all the lubrication points. We got that back together. That works beautifully now. There's a lot of lube points on this thing. So we got them all. Now what we're going to do is put the cover back on and turn it on and see what happens. We need the motor to work and run these two things, and we need the pump to work. Well, the light works. Let's turn it on and see what happens. Pretty good. You can see the pump belt turning. Good. Now we're going to put some coolant in it and see what happens. Well, so far so good. It doesn't look like the tank leaks. So now we're going to start this thing up. We'll open it to this side, I think is what we're doing, and see what happens. And what do you know? She pumps. Perfect. Let's grind a valve. This here is the stopper, so we'll loosen it off and we'll push that through until our valve comes out about that far. And we'll tighten that down. That's a handy little tool. That came with it, but the wrench was missing. But it's just an 11/16 wrench. I had one. Then this thing here, you just tighten that up. There. And we're ready to grind. So now we have to set the depth. Okay, let's see what happens. Just feed it in slowly. There, it's just touching. And then feed it another few thousandths. Another couple. Wow, look at that. Look at the finish that leaves. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. So I have to whisper a little bit. My wife's on the phone. That's awesome. What a nice machine. Now we'll grind the stem. So I've got it in that, just touches there, see? So I'll take off, this is in thousandths of an inch, so I'll take off 1,000. There we go. Take off another 1,000. There we go. Now we're taking something off. Take off one more. Alrighty, now at this point, you see here it's got this to setting, just to get you in the ballpark. So for the, if you're doing, you know, repetitive valves the same. So let's get this guy out of here. Now at this point, once we've done that, we would use our chamfering attachment just to put a little chamfer on the end of it here. But like I said, we haven't got that right now, but I'm hoping to get one. I removed this stone dresser from this apparatus here because I figured out that it goes in there. And then there's a set screw and there's a spring with a little brass plug that puts a little bit of load on this thread to keep it kind of locked in place. So we're going to go ahead and dress this stone, see how that works. Doesn't touch. Doesn't touch. There we go. There. And that's all you got to do once in a while. It leaves a nice new surface on the stone. Give it just a little bit more so you can see what it's doing. There. Perfect. And to dress this stone, let me see, we bring this over here, loosen that, loosen this guy. And if you can imagine, the stone dresser is in there like that. And then we just operate the machine back and forth. And that dresses our stone. I also need to figure out what this thing does. You can see it's some kind of a rest. And it's on an eccentric. You loosen that set screw there. And you can see that it goes around in an elliptical kind of way. So that's which way it was. So that's which way I'm going to put it. But I'll have to read the book and see what the heck that does. Another thing we'll do when I got to take this thing all apart and clean it all up and put it back together now that we know it works. But another thing I want to do is put a drain valve in this coolant reservoir so I can drain it when I'm done, because the coolant I use is water-based, and I don't want it sitting in this tank. I don't want the tank to rot out, obviously, so we'll drain it after every use. Okay, so that was a successful test. It's all good. I'm going to make one more video about this thing where we will take it, or maybe two. We're going to take it all apart, clean everything, get everything all tickety-bob, and put it back together, and make sure it still works. All right, that'll do it for this one. I'm very happy with this machine. It's It's awesome. Oh, we got a dog fight going on in front of us here. Guys, look, they always go for the legs. Guys, no, Nugget, not his eyeballs. These two, I tell you. They've been quiet all day, and now as soon as I do this, they go crazy. Anyway, we're going to try and find the chamfering attachment for this thing. There's also a rocker grinding attachment for it, but I've got a rocker grinding attachment for the Black & Decker, so it's not a priority. But I don't have a chamfering attachment for either. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.